My dad didn't just miss a birthday or a school play. He missed my wedding. The one day I begged him to show up. I remember standing at the aisle, my bouquet trembling slightly in my hands, staring at the empty chair waiting for him. No text came, no apology, just a silence so heavy it followed me for years. I told myself I didn't need him anymore, that I had finally stopped hoping for anything he couldn't give. But everything shifted the morning. My hotel chain hit a $580 million valuation. Every news network carried my name, and suddenly my phone lit up with a message he'd never sent before. Family dinner. 7 p.m. Important discussion. He didn't show up for my vows, but I walked into that dinner with something he never saw coming. Because this time, I wasn't the daughter he overlooked. I was the woman holding every card he once controlled. Pause with me for a second. Where are you right now? And what's happening around you? A humming fridge? A soft lamp? Or the end of a long day? People assume broken families are loud, shouting, slammed doors, arguments echoing through hallways. Mine wasn't like that. My house was quiet, uncomfortably quiet. My dad, Richard Collins, never needed to raise his voice. His absence spoke for him. He moved through our Seattle home, like a passing storm cloud. Dark suit, cold expression, always rushing toward something. That was never us. My mother, Evelyn, floated behind him like a shadow. Your father's under pressure, she whispered again and again. Be understanding, understanding. The word they used to excuse every wound. My brother Ethan was the golden one. Dad's reflection. Confident handshake. Perfect smile. Introduced proudly at every dinner. I stood behind them, with notebooks and quiet dreams. The daughter who didn't sparkle. Once when I was 12, I asked why he never came to my events. He didn't look up. I'm building a future, he said. You should be grateful. Grateful for being ignored. Grateful for empty chairs. Grateful for a father who couldn't say my name with warmth. I learned early that love in my house had terms, and I never met them. So I built my world inward. Books, ideas, small plans for a life where I might finally be seen. But even then, I didn't understand something crucial. You can grow tall in the dark, but the roots remember the cold. And when he missed my wedding, that cold finally cracked open, because losing his presence hurt less than realizing I never truly had it. After the wedding, something inside me hardened. Not bitterness, not revenge, just a quiet decision to stop bleeding for people who never offered a pulse. I stopped waiting for my father's approval. I stopped hoping he'd change. Instead, I built something of my own. Hospitality pulled me in fast. Not the old motels he bragged about, but thoughtful spaces where people actually felt seen. My first property was a mess. A damp lodge outside Portland, peeling paint, soggy carpets, and a musty hallway that smelled like forgotten summers. But it was mine. Every cracked tile, every broken heater, every midnight shift. The bank manager looked at me strangely when I signed the loan. You sure about this? He asked carefully. Too young, too inexperienced, too female. I saw the doubts in the twitch of his eyebrow. I nodded anyway. Failure wasn't an option, not when the alternative was returning home defeated. So I scrubbed floors at midnight, drafted marketing plans at dawn, and slept behind the reception desk. When exhaustion won, during a brutal winter storm, the power failed. Guests panicked in the dark. I guided them with a flashlight, my breath fogging in the cold, apologizing for chaos I couldn't control. I cried once, quietly in the boiler room, then wiped my face and kept going. By year 3, the lodge had a waiting list. By year 5, I owned 3 properties. Minimalist, intentional, beloved by travelers who wrote reviews that felt like little lights in a dim hallway. Investors called, magazines emailed, competitors copied, but not Dad. Not once. Silence followed every milestone, just like the empty chair. At my wedding, I told myself I didn't care, but late at night, when the lobby lights dimmed, the question always returned. Why wasn't I enough to make him show up? The morning the valuation came, everything felt surreal. My CFO burst into my office, breathless and bright. Hannah, she said, the numbers are in. I braced myself. Tell me. Her smile trembled. 580 million. The world tilted. Not from shock, but from clarity. Because the first thing I pictured was that empty wedding chair. And for once, the memory didn't bury me. It freed me. What I didn't know Was that my father? Read the same headline and remembered he had a daughter. If this were your life, what would you choose? Comment 1 to stay quiet and keep the peace. Comment 2 to speak up and protect your boundaries, even if it hurts. The morning the headlines spread, my office buzzed like a hive. Emails, calls, congratulations from people I barely remembered meeting. But the moment that stayed with me was quiet. I stood by the window, watching Seattle wake, when my phone buzzed again. Dad. His name almost looked foreign. I opened the message slowly. Family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. No congratulations, no pride, not even my name. Daniel walked in with coffee, took one look at my face, and sighed. It's about the money, isn't it? I nodded. He wants something, but I still planned to go. Not for him. For me. I needed to see his expression. When he realized, I no longer lived in his shadow. That afternoon, my CFO Lena waited in my driveway, holding a thick folder. You should see this, she said quietly. Inside were pages of unpaid loans, foreclosure notices, defaulted contracts, all tied to my father's empire. Your dad is collapsing, Lena whispered. He's months behind. I exhaled slowly. So that's why he texted. She hesitated. There's more. The lenders were panicking. They wanted out fast. They were willing to sell his entire debt portfolio for a fraction of its value. A strange calm settled over me. Not anger, not triumph. Clarity. Buy it, I said. Lena blinked. All of it? Yes. Every dollar he owes. If my father wanted a meeting, he was about to meet a very different version of me. By midnight, papers covered my kitchen table. Signatures, authorizations, transfer agreements. By sunrise, I owned the debt that owned my father. I expected excitement, but instead felt something quieter, a loosening, a release, from years spent chasing his gaze. As I drove to the country club, city lights blurred beside me. For the first time, I didn't rehearse what to say. I rehearsed who I had become. That evening, I dressed carefully. Black dress, tailored coat, heels that made me stand taller. Then my memories. Daniel watched me fasten my earrings. Nervous? He asked softly. A little, I admitted. Not about facing him, about still caring. He touched my arm gently. Caring isn't the weakness. Letting him keep hurting you is. The country club glowed warmly ahead. A place built for men like him, never for daughters like me. But tonight, I walked in without shrinking. When I entered the dining room, 4 faces turned toward me. My father straightened, trying to reclaim old power. Hannah, he said. You're late. No, I replied softly. I arrived exactly when I meant to. And none of them knew. I now owned the ground they were standing on. The private dining room glowed warm, but nothing about the atmosphere felt gentle. My father leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, jaw tight, studying me like an employee arriving late. Hannah, he said again. Sit. We have things to discuss. I didn't move. Not yet. I know why I'm here, I said quietly. Ethan scoffed, rolling his eyes like old habits were gospel. Then let's skip theatrics. Dad's business is struggling, and you are doing exceptionally well. Dad finished smoothly, as if he were granting praise. You have the means to help your family. Help your family. Not I'm proud of you. Not congratulations. Just expectation. Just entitlement. I pulled out the folder I had carried in my bag. I placed it on the table, like a quiet verdict. So this dinner, I asked, is about money? My mother flinched. Sweetheart, your father is under pressure. I cut her off gently. No, Mom. He's collapsing. Dad's eyebrows snapped together. Excuse me? You defaulted on loans. You ignored contractor invoices. Foreclosures are already scheduled. Uncle Mark shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's face drained. Dad hissed. How do you know about that? I opened the folder. Because I now own every dollar you owe. Silence cracked through the room, like a dropped crystal glass. Ethan grabbed the documents, flipping pages with trembling hands. Dad, it's real. She bought everything. Mom's voice broke. Hannah, why would you do that? Dad slammed his fists on the table, wine sloshing over crystal rims. How dare you interfere in my business? I stayed still, steady, whole. You summoned me for help. This is help, I said calmly. This is control. You're trying to take what's mine, Dad barked. I didn't take it, I replied. You lost it. I just moved faster. Ethan stood abruptly. Unbelievable. Dad built everything we have. Everything you have, I corrected. I built mine alone. Mom covered her face, tearful but never apologizing. Hannah, please, don't do this. I reached into the folder and slid one envelope forward. This is your path out, I said. 30 days to vacate all properties. Dad stared at me, rage warring with disbelief. You're no daughter of mine. Finally, the truth he'd been circling for years. I straightened. No, I said softly. And you made sure of that long ago. Chairs scraped behind me as I turned toward the door. Someone called my name. Someone cried. Someone cursed. But none of it touched me. For the first time in my life, walking away didn't feel like losing. It felt like reclaiming something. I should never have surrendered. And they still hadn't realized. I wasn't done yet. The night air hit me softly when I stepped outside the club. Cool, open, free. For a moment, I just stood there, hands shaking slightly, like my body was catching up to what my heart already knew. Behind the doors, the shouting continued. Accusations, crying, blame tossed like debris. But none of it reached me anymore. Not tonight. Daniel waited in the car, eyes warm, steady in a way my childhood never was. You okay? He asked gently. I thought about the empty chair at my wedding, about years of trying to earn love that should have been given freely, about the girl who once checked her phone, hoping her father would remember her. Then I breathed out slowly. I'm finally okay, I whispered. The next morning, sunlight poured into my kitchen, like it had been waiting for me. The folder from last night rested on the counter. Only now, it didn't look heavy. It looked like closure. Over the next weeks, I toured my father's failing properties. Where he saw decay, I saw beginnings. We rebuilt them, with intention, with care, with the peace I never grew up with. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in a lobby window. I didn't see the girl my father overlooked. I saw a woman who finally chose herself. That was my turning point. Not the valuation, not the takeover, but the moment I realized I wasn't broken for wanting a father who couldn't be one. I was human, and choosing myself was not betrayal. It was recovery. I didn't lose a family that night. I simply stopped losing myself. If this story touched you, tap like, share it with someone who's tired of shrinking, and subscribe to Echoes of Life for the next quiet victory.